Much love, brothers and sisters, and welcome to the Pure Truth 365 platform, where our goal is kingdom building, black empowerment, truth, health and wellness, growth, and the promotion of conscious awareness on true identity and purpose of the original people of the promise, according to the Torah and the entire Bible of Holy Scriptures. So as we read and went over in the last video, according to Deuteronomy 28, part 1, that the Most High God punished the children of Jacob or Israel or the Hebrews because of our ancestors' disobedience to the commandments and covenants of God. According to the scriptures, Israel, who do good for a while, then they get bored of doing good and are heavily influenced by what the heathen do and the pagans. The heathen are out having a great time. They're high, drunk, and having sex all day and night. And just like today, 2021, they worship and make worldly, worthless things their gods. And while it may appear that they're having so much fun and prospering, the Hebrew children of Israel are influenced by the facade of what appears to be living good, but ultimately disobeying God. And for the chosen ones of the Most High, their disobedience results in punishment, curses, and being scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. So Deuteronomy 28 tells us that because of disobedience, the results identify the true chosen people. What nation of people would want to claim cursing and punishment from the Creator? No one, not one. But our enemies, the imposters, wiped off our entire history and claimed that they were the original chosen people of the promise. But they didn't claim the curses and the judgments. See, you can't have it both ways. Our enemies tortured, slaved, murdered, and justified their actions because of the curse on the children of Israel, but will never identify us as the chosen of God, which is why we are under the curses and punishments of the Most High in the first place. When you read the entire 28th, it is evidence that no other race or nation on earth has fulfilled prophecy in the scriptures but the so-called African Negro people, and more specifically the original Hebrew Israelite nation of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. See, the Bible will give it to you, and we thank the Lord for the holy books and records, because we're not blind anymore to the small details in the scriptures that have been overlooked, kept us from seeing throughout the years. Yet the whole truth is never mentioned in churches. Why is that? What is wrong with these pastors? Our true identity was very important during antiquity. It's very important now. And it's extremely important for what is to come. John, the 8th chapter and the 32nd verse, Christ tells Israel that the truth will make you free. If we live for righteousness and truth, we will receive the blessings of the Lord and not the curses. God allowed the enemies of Jacob or Israel to attack us because of disobedience. So now our ancestors and descendants have to face persecution and sorrow, besieged and exiled and expelled from the holy lands of promise, from one territory to the next, homeless and hunted by our enemies, who relish at the torture and destruction of the souls of the Hebrews, as a people who once were abode in the splendor of the Most High, now slaves without a hope of a future. So, who are these enemies? Well, our main enemy, other than Satan or Hasatan himself, is Jacob's twin brother Esau. Stay tuned for the next video lesson titled Know Thy Enemy. So I'm going to read the entire 28th. I think it's important to read the entire. It's long. It's 68 verses. But it's important to read the entire 28th, and so that we can bring it all to focus. And on the screen, I'm just going to show the entire book. And it reads, "And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh," and I'm reading from the Hebrew Bible. "And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh, thy Elohim, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that Yahweh, thy Elohim, will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy Elohim." And we know that Elohim means God. "Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy ground, and the fruit of thy cattle, the increase of thy kine, and the flocks of thy sheep. Blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. Blessed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shalt thou be when thou goest out." See, the Lord is going to bless us, fill us up with food. We'll never run out of food. We'll never run out of meat. We'll always have enough to nourish the body if we're obedient to him. 7th verse. "Yahweh shall cause thine enemies to rise up against thee, to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way, and flee before thee 7 ways. Nobody should touch us. All our enemies, the Lord will take care of them. We won't even have to worry about them." 8th verse. "Yahweh shall command the blessing upon thee in thy storehouses, and in all that thou settest thine hand to do. And he shall bless thee in the land which Yahweh thy Elohim giveth thee." 9th verse. "Yahweh shall establish thee an holy people unto himself, as he hath sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of Yahweh thy Elohim, and walk in his ways. And all people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of Yahweh, and they shall be afraid of thee. And Yahweh shall make thee plenteous in goods, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy ground, in the land which Yahweh sware unto thy fathers to give thee." 12th verse. "Yahweh shall open unto thee his good treasure, the heaven, to give the rain unto thy land in his season, and to bless all the work of thine hand. And thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. And Yahweh shall make thee the head and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath, if that thou hearken unto the commandments of Yahweh thy Elohim. And thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other Elohim to serve them. But it shall come to pass, here we go, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahuwah thy Elohim, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. 16. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thine kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out. 20. Yahuwah shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. Yahuwah shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land, whither thou goest to possess it. Yahuwah shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron. 24. Yahuwah shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven shall it come down upon thee, until thou be destroyed. Yahuwah shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. 26. And thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. Yahuwah will smite thee with the botch of Mitzrayim, which is Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch, whereof thou canst not be healed. 28. Yahuwah shall smite thee with madness, and blindness, and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. 33. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. Yahuwah shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that cannot be healed, from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. 36. Yahuwah shall bring thee and thy king which thou shalt set over thee unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. And there shalt thou serve other Elohim, wood and stone. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither Yahuwah shall lead thee. 38. Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shalt gather but little in. For the locust shall consume it. For thou shalt plant vineyards, and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine, nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. 40. Thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coast, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive oil shall cast his fruit. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. All thy trees and fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. 44. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yahuwah thy Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. 46. And they shall be upon thee for a sign, and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Because thou servest not Yahuwah thy Elohim with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which Yahuwah shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee. Yahuwah shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. 50. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. 51. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. 52. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fence walls come down, wherein thou trustest throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which Yahuwah thy Elohim hath given thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and thy daughters, which Yahuwah thy Elohim hath given thee in the siege, and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. 54. So that the man that is tender among you, and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children, whom he shall eat, because he have nothing left in the siege, and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter. 57. And toward her young one, that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear. For she shall eat them for want of all things secretly in the siege of straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this Torah that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, Yahuwah thy Elohim. 59. Then Yahuwah will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sicknesses, and of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Mitzrayim, which thou was afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this Torah, them will Yahuwah bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. 62. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of Yahuwah thy Elohim. And it shall come to pass that as Yahuwah rejoiced over you to do good and to multiply you, so Yahuwah will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught. And ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. And Yahuwah shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other Elohim, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. 65. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But Yahuwah shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, would Elohim it were even? And at even thou shalt say, would Elohim it were morning. For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And Yahuwah shall bring thee into Mitzrayim again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. And that sounds very familiar. The whole 28th sounds very, very familiar. Commentaries on Hebrew and Christian Mythology by Judge Parrish B. Ladd of the San Francisco Bar. Copyright 1896. It's all about the old books, y'all. All about the old books. Okay, we're going to skip down in the middle paragraph. It will be remembered that Christ was a Jew, that he followed in the wake of his early teachers, preaching the doctrines of Judaism, and finally, in common with several others, claimed to be the long-looked-for Jewish Messiah. His followers were, for the first century, looked upon by the Romans as a sect of the Jews, while by the Hebrews they were characterized as Nazarenes. Nor was it until the beginning of the 2nd century that they threw off the old coast of Judaism and took on that of Christians. The persecution of the despised race, speaking about the Hebrews, began at an early date. Finding the Jews too stubborn, the followers of the meek and lowly turned their attention to the world of pagans. So we basically gave in. Being around them so much, around the pagans and heathens so much, we basically just gave in. As it is not for the purpose of this work to go into details, we will pass over the first 9 centuries of Christian sway with the statement that during that early time, Christian doctrines had not fully ripened. The true Christian spirit had not fully developed, nor were the nations of Europe so far sunk in barbarism as to tolerate the enforcement of true Christianity by fire and sword. So this is when the Israelites were scattered, as Deuteronomy 28 said. A lot of them were scattered and brought into Spain, but they were already there. The Iberian Peninsula was already inhabited by us. All was in silent as the grave. Science had been nipped into the bud. No writings in conflict or antagonism to the church were allowed. All books before publication had to undergo inspection by the church, and if found obnoxious in the slightest degree, were destroyed. See, that's what they do first. That's what they do to swipe us off. And to erase and delete our existence and our history. Our history was first. They wanted to take our books and our records first, to wipe out any documentation of our history. That's what they did first. So again, no writings in conflict or antagonism to the church were allowed. All books before publication had to undergo inspection by the church, and if found obnoxious in the slightest degree, were destroyed. All attempts by the people to acquire general knowledge were stamped upon, unless conducted under the supervision of the church. Now, these are our enemies by way of persecution. It was under this state of things that the humane and benevolent spirit of Christianity dawned upon the followers of Abraham and Moses by burning, roasting, torturing, maiming, and finally putting to death more than 1/2 of the Hebrew race. Wow. Skip down to the bottom. It is well established history that in France alone, thousands of Jews were burned at the stake. On one occasion, 160 men, women, and children were bound hand and foot and thrown into a ditch. Wood was piled on them and the torch applied, while numbers of priests stood by with uplifted hands, calling on their Savior to witness the suffering of the unbelieving Jews. See, they were forcing them to convert to Christianity. Whole families were burned in this funeral pyre for the reason that the pious Christians could not see them separated. Wow. Jews and Moors in Spain. It's by Rabbi Jos Krosskopf, Kansas City, 1887. 1887. Chapter 9, the entrance of the Jews into Spain. The entrance of the Jews into Spain. Let's skip down to the highlighted. The Bible gives us sufficient basis, he writes, to build upon the fairly reliable theory that as early as the time of King Solomon, 1000 BC, the Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain and Portugal, that part of Europe, was known to the Israelites. So we were already there. The entrance of the Jews into Spain, page 91. I'm going to start at the top in the highlight. We have a tradition which tells us, it reads, that when in the early days of the Christian era, the Jews of Spain were attacked for having crucified Jesus. They claimed that neither they nor their fathers have any share in the crucifixion, that they were the descendants of Jews who lived in Spain long before the time of Christ and produced a gravestone upon which was inscribed. Okay, let's skip down. We know that when the Romans became complete masters of Spain in the 2nd century BC, they found a considerable number of Israelites domiciled there. About 60 AC, the Jewish community of Spain must have been strong and influential enough to make the coming of the Apostle Paul among them seem necessary. Crowds of exiles wandered westward and swelled their number after the terrible siege of Jerusalem by Titus. And in addition, 80,000 slaves are said to have been transferred thither and sold as slaves and speedily ransomed by their more fortunate brethren. Historic sources are agreed that these Jewish inhabitants of Spain, by their passionate fondness for agricultural pursuits, a passion which they had brought along from the Holy Land, soon made Andalusia the garden spot of Europe, and by their industry, frugality, skill in traffic, and intellectual powers, they became the pillars of the country's prosperity and acquired great wealth and distinction. They knew nothing about that, so they kept us around. Sound familiar? Sounds as familiar as it does in America, what they did to us. It could not have been otherwise. In habits, aims, and ambitions, there was an organic difference between the Jews and their warlike fellow citizens. The Romans, as well as the Visigoths, were wedded to military life. And the Visigoths were barbaric. They were influential in starting the Catholic Church. So the Romans and the Visigoths were two separate groups, but the same ethnicity. They were both European, both from the Caucasus. Every other calling or pursuit was degrading in their eyes. Trading or tilling the soil was in their eyes only befitting the slave. So he's saying they didn't know anything about it, and they didn't want to know anything about it. All they wanted to do was fight and war and kill and steal and destroy. Savages. The uncertainty of their future, their roaming life, their habit of living from plunder, developed in them traits that were just the opposite to those of the Jews. The Jew hated war. His love for home was intense. His industry and frugality, his religious life, and his love of study were proverbial. And so in proportion as the others increased in brutality and ignorance, in poverty and moral corruption, the Jews reached the heights of prosperity, morality, and intellect. So they enslaved us, and of course they were prospering in what they were able to do. He writes, that prosperity, however, proved to be their curse. It is a mistake to believe that the greatest crime of the Jews was their faith. It was their prosperity. He writes, idlers and spendthrifts have never yet been thrilled with ecstatic delight at another's prosperity, and never is their venom more poisonous and their wrath more bitter than when the Jew is unfortunate enough to be fortunate. So here comes the jealousy. In Spain, as elsewhere, a mighty power of soldiers and monks and priests and dependents, all unproductive laborers, stood arrayed against the handful of Jews, the only productive laborers of the realm. And the battle cry was not the Jews' money, but the Jews' soul. There was great diplomacy in this battle cry. They knew of the intensity of the Jews' faith in his religion. They knew how he was wedded to the traditions and hopes of his race. They knew that he would cheerfully part with all his treasures rather than sacrifice an iota of his belief. They knew that the industrial and economical and intellectual and peace and home-loving traits of the Jew were so deeply rooted that he would at once begin anew to acquire again, perhaps for the same end, all that had been cruelly torn from him, just as the bees, nothing daunted by the theft of their painfully hoarded wealth, will start anew to fill the hive. And so whenever they had need of the money of the Jews, and that need was, alas, a frequent one, they became all at once painfully concerned about the Jewish soul and its final fate, and they never failed to relieve the Jews of their treasures, even if they failed in the saving of their souls. Spain took the lead in Jewish persecution and maintained its odious distinction for centuries. At that council, laws were passed of which the spirit may be comprehended from the following preamble and tithes. Laws concerning the promulgation and ratification of statutes against Jewish wickedness and for the general extirpation of Jewish errors, that the Jews may not celebrate the Passover according to their usage, that the Jews may not contract marriage according to their own customs, that the Jews may not practice the Abrahamic right, that the Jews bring no actions against the Christians, that the Jews be not permitted to bear witness against the Christians. The Jews knew what was wanted. They paid a large sum of money, and the laws remained inoperative till Recaredo's successor, Sisebuto, ascended the throne. This king entered into a league with Emperor Heraclius with the pious determination of extirpating the dangerous race throughout the world, and so he issued a law which gave the Jews a year's time to decide whether they would confess Christ and be baptized, or be shaved and scourged, their property confiscated, and themselves forced to leave the country. Well, they already love Christ. 90,000 are said to have submitted to baptism, but with them the enforced Christian rite was but a mask for their secret Jewish belief and practices, and they had ample cause for regretting their religious weakness, for baptism did not secure them from new indignities and humiliation. They were despised for their apostasy, and their property was taken from them as if they had not complied with the king's edict. Thousands upon thousands fled to the northern coast of Africa, and with them fled the prosperity from the Gothic kingdom. Having once discovered so excellent a source for satisfying their greed for money, they had no intention of letting such golden opportunities escape them. A few years had passed, and the baptized Jews, true to their industrial and economical habits, had hoarded up some wealth with which they might buy life from the infuriated mob, and so the Fourth Council met at Toledo in the year 633 and enacted the cruel requirement that the children of those who had accepted Christianity should be torn forever from their parents' heart, to be educated by Christians in the Christian faith. The Sixth Council enacted a law that every king on his accession shall take an oath that he will execute all the laws against the Jews, and will issue others equally as severe. Another law enacted the punishment of death upon Christians who should embrace Judaism, or commit the monstrous and unutterable crime of pursuing an execrable commerce with the ungodly. The Ninth Council decreed that all baptized Jews were bound to appear in the church, not only on Christian, but also on Jewish holidays, lest while they outwardly profess Christianity, they should practice secretly Judaism. So he put in all these laws, all these edicts, Every time they turn around, they will put in another law. They always meet another council, 5th council, 4th council, 6th council, 9th council, 12th council. And they always add laws to make it harder and harder for the Israelites, for the Hebrews. The 12th Council of Toledo, 681, far surpassed its predecessors in the cruelties of its enactments. The preamble complained that the crafty Jews had eluded all former laws, and then decreed that after 100 lashes would be inflicted upon the naked body, and after that the offender would be put in chains, banished, and his property confiscated for any of the following offenses: for rejecting the sacrament of the Lord's Supper, for not bringing children or servants or dependents to baptism, for observing the Passover, the new moon, the Feast of Tabernacles, for violating the Christian Sabbath or the great festivals of the church. The circumcision of a child brought additional tortures: upon the father, mutilation; upon the mother, the loss of her nose. Wow. The circumcision of a child brought additional tortures: upon the father, mutilation; upon the mother, the loss of her nose. No marriage was hereafter to be contracted without solemn obligation that both would become Christians. They made them become Christians, or they wouldn't even allow them to be married. All subjects of the kingdom who harbored, assisted, or concealed the flight of a Jew were to be scourged and have their property confiscated. The Jew who read or allowed his children to read books written against Christianity was to suffer 100 lashes. On the second offense, the lashes were to be repeated, with banishment and confiscation. No Jew was to hold any office by which he might have authority over Christians. Wow. That's ridiculous. Page 97, I want to skip down. Persecution came to the Jewish nation in its most horrible forms, yet surrounded by every circumstance of petty annoyance that could destroy its grandeur, and it continued for centuries, their abiding portion. But above all this, the genius of that wonderful people rose supreme, while those around them were groveling in the darkness of besotted ignorance, while juggling miracles and lying relics were the themes on which almost all Europe was expiating, while the intellect of Christendom, enthralled by countless superstitions, had sunk into a deep, deadly torpor, in which all love of inquiry and all search for truth were abandoned. The Jews were still pursuing the path of knowledge, amassing learning, and stimulating progress with the same unflinching constancy that they manifested in their faith. The enemy succeeded in impoverishing the Jew and in stifling his energies and efforts for the good of the country, but failed ignominiously in their effort to inspire him with a love for Christianity, which perhaps was never sincerely wanted, and if wanted, the means chosen to secure the end were not such that are crowned with success. The degraded and tortured Jew was filled with a bitter hatred against Christianity and with a burning longing for revenge. And vengeance came. God had heard the wailings and seen the sufferings of the people that never was born to die. The Gothic kingdom of Spain was to suffer bitterly for its terrible crimes, and the Jew was to be rewarded 1,000-fold for the sufferings he had endured for his religion's sake. Weaker and weaker became that kingdom which the Jews had made in former years the pride of Europe. It was beset by foes within and by foes without. So we see that it is documented, especially in the old books, that the Most High was not slack concerning his promise. For our disobedience, he allowed the persecutions to begin. And since then, we have been forced in slavery, out of slavery, in foreign lands, persecuted because of our disobedience to God's covenants and commandments. When will we learn, Israel? When will we learn? I hope soon.
It could be that the Jews before they left Egypt imbibed some of the color prejudice mentioned by Massey, but it could not have been strong among them because they were dark or even black. One rabbi says they were black at that time, that the passage black but comely from the Songs of Solomon means. I was black in Egypt but comely in Egypt. There is no doubt that after 4 centuries in Egypt, the Jews had mixed much with Egyptians and Ethiopians, whom their legends describe as black and woolly-haired. Thus, the main difference between Hebrew and Egyptian was not racial but religious, the form which economic exploitation then took. Miriam's objection to the Ethiopian wife of Moses, Zipporah, was not color but on religion and more likely culture. Furthermore, we have no proof that the original 70 Jews who went to Egypt were white. According to their legends, they originated in Chaldea, and there is considerable evidence the inhabitants of that region in earliest times were Negroid. In fact, some writers said the Jews were an African people. Deuteronomy 32:4 reads, "He is the rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are judgment. A God of truth, and without iniquity, just and right is he. They have corrupted themselves, their spot is not the spot of his children. They are a perverse and crooked generation. Do ye thus requite the Lord, O foolish people and unwise? Is not he thy father that hath bought thee and established thee? Remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee. Thy elders, and they will tell thee. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. He found him in desert land and in waste-howling wilderness. He led him about. He instructed him. He kept him as the apple of his eye. So the Lord alone did lead him, and there was no strange god with him. But Jeshurun waxed fat and kicked. Thou art waxen fat, thou art grown thick, thou art covered with fatness. Then he forsook God which made him, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods, with abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God. To gods whom they knew not. To new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be. For they are a very froward generation, children in whom is no faith. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation.